VeilLovers.net with the trap metal behemoth MC known as Sinizter, multi-genre recording artist, because he doesn't just rap, he has multiple different bands of different genres and he's all over the place. Let's begin.
I grew up like in a suburban town, so I think the worst I had it like is weird. Like school and everything was like, typical. Like I said, suburb, so not dirt poor, but also definitely not rich. My parents were divorced since I was like 5. I had a stepdad when I was like 13, and that was like a terrible situation. He was just like abusive to my mom and I, and there's a lot to dive into there, so not going to go down that route. Something for a different interview. But when they separated when I was like 17, it like put my mom and I in like a bad financial spot, and my he like all the stuff was like in his name and stuff like that. So like cars and everything, took the house too. So like when they separated, my mom and I went back to like this shitty apartment, and we had no transportation. So I was doing like the last year and a half of high school. If I had the money, I would be able to take the bus to school. If not, I had to walk 30 minutes there, then walk like 30 minutes to work, and then walk all the way home. So that was like my first job experience too, because like first job I had was at like a bagel spot that was kind of close to the where I was going to high school at. But yeah, I mean, and then my mom was also busing to work, so kind of just shitty overall. But during that entire time, I fronted a couple different metal bands. The two main ones were Gutted Remains and Immortus. I did those from like ages 14 to pretty much 18 to the army, or left to join the army. And I enlisted there when I was 17. My parents had to like sign a waiver. I enlisted as like they call it like the delayed entry program. So I did that, left when I graduated high school, like a few months after. Yeah, I did that for like 4.5 years, deployed to Afghanistan for 9 months. I joined as an 11 Bravo, which is an infantryman for anybody who is curious what my job was. So I did grunt stuff, door kicker. So I did that for, like I said, for 4 years, 9-month deployment to Afghanistan. We'll get to this later on in the interview, but I did have like a small little electronic project. I never really completely had a break during like with music and stuff during my service. Nothing could really keep me away from doing it. But like I said, we'll get into that later in the interview. I got out in 2015, and a couple years later, I started going to the Atlanta Institute of Music. That's where I went to college, using my GI Bill. That was where I created Sinizter. That would be like every single black metal band and album that I ever owned, because my mom, like my dad didn't really care that much, but my mom, like definitely, she was not feeling the pentagrams and the inverted crosses everywhere. Side note, though, going back to my stepdad real quick, yeah, he made my stepsister and I like throw out all of our rap albums, and I had like Eminem albums, Young Buck, 50 Cent, DMX, Grand Champ, and like all of my first, basically, I had to throw everything out. Dude was just a huge freaking control freak. But thankfully, like MP3 players and all that shit were kind of starting to, come back and shit, and I ended up just getting more stuff burned onto CD and stuff from like friends and stuff. For Sinizter specifically, this only applies to Sinizter. I remember in 2012 I had a mixtape. It was my very first time hearing Waka. Well, actually, it wasn't my very first time. I heard Waka Flocka. I heard that No Hand song in like 2010. A couple of years later, I had a mixtape when I was in Afghanistan for LeBron Flocka James 3. I still love that album, or that mixtape. Probably one of that. Like I started listening to him during that mixtape era. So big fan. I grew up on Eminem, like everywhere. Family members listened to him and stuff too. So it was like couldn't get away from it. Like a lot of the Atlanta trap stuff, early like first album, like trap music era Ti and like Bone Crusher and stuff like that. But then for like a lot of lyrical influences, definitely, like I said, Eminem. And for the chopping technicality, I've always really, really admired Tech Nine. As far as like technical spitters go, I think Tech Nine is pretty like peak. And that's just my opinion. And Brother Lynch, especially for like horrorcore, And then on the metal side, the way that I came up with this is like direct influence. The way I came up with like the yell, because I wasn't always yelling when I first started, or like the scream, that came from like Corey Taylor, namely the very first Slipknot album, the self-titled, and then Chuck Schuldiner from Death, the band Death. That was like those two are probably like the biggest influences as far as like what the actual sound of my voice sounds like. I don't really go to too many concerts anymore. This is more of like a time thing. But I've seen Mayhem twice, and both times were like amazing. Like I've seen a lot of black metal shows before, but they just like the onstage theatrics like gets me every single time. Like it never gets old, and they're so sick. Like the way that they do their whole performance, and it's like more than worth the money. Well, it was in 2017, like in October of 2017, actually. It was like just before Halloween. You know what's funny? Actually, I literally just remembered this as you were asking me this. That headliner originally, he didn't make it out to the show, but it was actually supposed to be Loki. I can't remember who ended up headlining, who they replaced him with. But yeah, I was in Atlanta. I came out with the mask and I came out with corpse paint for that show. And that's something that I always wanted incorporated in somewhat, even if it was like, not every single show, but just like specific shows. The crowd for that show in particular was like mostly the Atlanta Juggalos. Like, so I played to a crowd of maybe like, I don't know, 40-ish people. But I mean, the music I was making back then, was a lot more like horror hip hop. So there were no mosh pits, but, I tried to make it memorable. There are photos from it. I have cell phone footage of it, but the music was, like I said, trash. So it's definitely not what it is today. The corpse paint's something I always like tried to incorporate here and there for Sinister. I even sold merch that night too. So I mean, people were definitely feeling it to a certain degree. There's a little bit of crossover lyrically with like some of the metal Sinister stuff and like Hate Within. At least like as of recently, because I started like introducing like metal into like a lot more into the Sinister catalog, and with War Life Death and the most recent Hate Within album, Tomb of the Tormentor, I was going through like this like existential crisis. So a lot of it is like just a lot of it's basically about existentialism, what happens when you die, fear of dying, not being able to like go back in time and like redo things, stuff like that. Questioning everything basically. But there's a little bit of crossover there, but like for the most part, at least on the hip hop side of Sinister, there's never crosses over into like anything Hate Within or Legions of Malthus. And Legions of Malthus is like a whole different thing on its own lyrically. The lyrics are, well, at least for the first album that's out, are a lot it's just like anti-religious, and it's a lot about like war, but like not like modern war, like medieval war, black metal. It's got that sort of vibe to it, but it's like fast and aggressive, and I don't really take those concepts and apply them anywhere else. So they're all pretty original. I like a lot of different shit, so that's why I have so many side projects, because like I couldn't do what I'm doing with Legions. I couldn't do that with Sinister, and it would be too much stuff. And it's like the Sinister audience is already like spread pretty thin as is, with like the modern like Russian funk, the older eras of Sinister, like the trap Sinister, and then like the metal Sinister. There's three different types of Sinister that you can get. You know what I mean? That's like I can't, water it down even more with just more and more and more stuff, so. I had a goth industrial project called Nexium. You can look this up. There's a digital footprint that still exists for it. It's on Spotify and Apple Music and all that. But that was the project that I had pre-Sinister. So that was like, technically it was like 2013, because I recorded the very first Nexium song when I was still in Afghanistan. And then I had that project coming back. I wasn't able to record the album though until like 2015. And then the reason why that project died was because the band member that I was making the music with, she passed away. And then at that point, I was like, I ought to just try. I was looking for like, I needed like a solo project, because like I couldn't get a band together. It was just too hard to get 5 guys on the same page. So I was like, maybe I'll try my hand at rapping. I'm in Atlanta, you know. And then when I started going to school, I was surrounded by rappers. So, and then I had the Facebook scene. Actually, you know what, bro? This is the first time I've ever mentioned this on camera. I know I'm only mentioning this because this is the Fago Lovers is the underground, and I know when I say this guy's name, you're gonna know. I had a mentor early on in my career. His name was Sleep Lyrical. This was back in like 2017, 2018, and like part of 2019. But he pretty much is like I've never said this before in an interview, so I'm sure he'll be happy that we got to give the man his flowers. Yeah, that was the guy who pretty much taught me how to rap over like a period of years, and like also like I grew up listening to hip hop and stuff like that, but like there were things that he did that were more like personal, that were like, hey, like, I want you to watch this YouTube video on the history of hip hop. Like, no bullshit. Like, went and found one of several videos. And yeah, it was just like I think it was narrated by KRS-One. But yeah, it was like an hour and a half long. Just like a whole history from like, 70s, 80s, 90s, and then, 2000s. But it helped me enter the genre a lot better, because it's like, I hate to get into this side of the conversation, but it's like, when you're not black, you're definitely like kind of a guest, and you don't want to be disrespectful in the house, you know what I mean? You want to know how to pay homage the right way, if you're going to do that, and like you want to know what you can and can't get away with too. Like as me myself, can I entered, and I've never changed, but I entered as a metalhead, you know what I mean? That's pretty unorthodox, but like I was able to build a career on it. I never wanted to change myself, but I had to like learn. And honestly, it was really through watching people literally just be themselves, kind of just play it by ear and see if this is acceptable. But obviously now in the present day in 2025, I mean, over the years, we've had plenty of metalhead rappers like Ghostmane and hell, even Bones, honestly. So yeah, it's funny, man. Another little side note, I kind of came up in that Facebook rap scene. So I saw Samson Samson for the first time in literal years, but he's like, dude, I fucking like he came up to me when we were at the Virginia Beach show and he was like, I fucking remember you from like the Facebook rap days and like pre-COVID basically. And I was like, damn, you remember my fucking whack ass? That's crazy. Cause like during that time when like, when he was popping, back then on like I guess you could call it like a horrorcore tip. That's pretty much what it was. Well, let me paint a picture for you of when this was. This was like in the days of like was Mission Infect a thing? What was the thing before Mission Infect?
I mean, Mission Infect's been around since at least 2000.
Did Loki have another collective?
Well, there was a Seventh Seal Entertainment or something like that.
Man, I could have sworn he had another one. Okay, this was back in.
You talking about the Underground Propaganda Squad?
Yeah. UPS. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was afterwards. Yes, yes, I already.
Oh, okay. It was like back in those days. So like I actually knew pretty much everybody. Like we probably have a lot of mutuals. Put it to you that way.
Well, that's cool.
I
That's cool.
remember Max. I remember Crossworm. I remember shit. I remember all those guys. I was like bottom of the barrel. I was like a fucking new guy basically. I'll put it to you this way. Back in those days, I'll give you like a quick rundown of artists that I opened for. Esham was one of them. That was the first artist I ever opened for was Esham. ABK was the second artist I ever opened for. And shit you not, this one's really gonna throw you for a whim. I opened for Razakel in like 2018.
Oh shit! She just dropped she's about to drop a new album. I think it's her 20th album. But yeah, she's been in the scene for years, man.
Yeah, literally long enough for me to have opened for her at one point.
Nah, she's the OG, man. Like even if you aren't a fan of her music, you have to respect the legacy of her career because she has not stopped this entire time. Yeah, man, she's definitely an OG. That's cool that you know about all this.
It's funny how it circled back around like 8 years later.
Right.
It started in this for a little bit and then like broke off. I broke off intentionally because at the time I saw that, well, at least from the angle that I was looking at it, and there was like a lot of, just like any scene, there was a lot of toxicity. I'm not going to get into that, but I was like, all right, there's this whole other SoundCloud scene that's kind of really, really popping. And this has like a more heavier sound that I was drawn to. And that's why I wanted to go that direction, which again, that extends now. I feel like Ouija was the bridge between those worlds into that. Like he was like the first artist that I saw that really brought that into the horror underground, or what was the wicked underground, like you said.
Yeah, no, I agree with you that because people weren't really bringing in that Suicide Boys sound to Psychopathic Records.
Aside from the fact that I had Nexium from like that, which was another goth industrial project of my own from years ago, I, believe it or not, came up listening to Aesthetic Perfection when I was a teenager. When I followed him and he like, discovered who I was, he like reached out, messaged me, and then, we just started talking from there, and found out that funny enough, we had a bunch of mutuals from that scene too. I wasn't heavily involved in that scene, but I definitely knew a lot of people that he knew. And actually the girl who wrote for Nexium, he was also good friends with at one point before she passed away. So that was another thing that we riffed on for a little bit. But yeah, the song To the Core was actually an a cappella that I had that I hadn't used. It was a song that Cordhell and I had actually done, the guy I did One Shot, One Kill with, and we just never used it. Um, so I ended up just sending it to Daniel. I showed it to Daniel first, and he was like, "Oh, dude, I can definitely make something with this." So he did, and we ended up making To the Core. It goes back like I think at least 2 years. He was good friends with Frankie Goldie at the time. I think he does his own like Frankie Goldie stuff, but then he's got another group called Gloom Unit, I believe. He was in Ouija's ear about me for like I said, like going back all the way to like 2 years ago, and was like showing him my music, like literally forcing, from what I heard, he was forcing Ouija to watch my videos and was like, dude, you got to collab with this guy. You got to collab with this guy. Ouija was like, okay, cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and then on my end, I also had people like calling me like, dude, you got to collab with Ouija, man. Like that'd be the ultimate crossover from like, the trap underground, SoundCloud kind of scene to like, bridging that gap with Ouija and the Juggalo scene and shit. And I'm like, okay, yeah, like I'm down. But like he's busy, I'm busy. I remember we followed each other literally. Like I'd probably have to check my Instagram, but I guarantee you we followed each other probably sometime in like 2023. We talked a little bit in DMs, nothing deep, just like, hey, what's up? Whatever. I fuck with you. I like your shit. You like mine. Cool. It's like, yeah, man, we should do a song, like, send me an open. Yeah, I'll write something and send it to you, when I get a chance. And then same with me. And we just never did it. Over the years, people just kept saying, collab, collab, collab. And then finally, I saw last year that he was playing a show in like November at my stomping grounds over at the Masquerade in Atlanta. I DM'd him and I'm like, bro, I'm coming out. Like, I don't have shit else to do. And he's like, dude, yeah, just let me know when you get here, man. Like, I'll, get you backstage and shit. So I pulled up and he did exactly that. I met Darby, Kev Buck, and Chunk and Ouija. And we all just, kind of sat and shot the shit for a little bit. And I stayed and watched his set and shit. From there, I told him before I left, I'm like, dude, I'm going to send you an open soon. Like, I'm going to start writing when I get home. And spoiler alert, I did not start writing when I got home. it took it took me 2 months to send him an open from that point on. So like earlier this year, I finally hit him up again, and I was looking on my computer for just like any beat that I had, and I found this old Flex, or it wasn't even, well, I guess it was like the Flexitelli beat that I got him on for Dead to Me. It was like about 2 years old. It was made when I was on tour with Harper. We stopped in Vegas and I went to Flex's house and he just cooked up, and I had that beat just kind of laying around because he hadn't finished it yet, and it was an MP3 beat. So we didn't even have a wave, and it was an unfinished beat. So the song that you hear, Dead to Me, the one that, our fans love so damn much, is not like the beat's not even finished, but it still slaps. So imagine if that beat was finished. It would have been crazy. We did that song. He fucking loved it and was like, dude, this is a fucking hit. We talked on FaceTime for like 3 hours and we kind of like laid out a game plan for the possibility of an album, which was started off as an EP. And then he was like, fuck it. Like, are you down to just do an album? And I'm like, yeah. So we're working on the album and he's like, I want it to be 17 songs. And I was like, bro, that's way too fucking many. My albums are usually like 10 to, recently I do like 10 to 12 songs. Ouija does super, super long albums. So we met in the middle at like 13 songs. I tried to make it so that every single song was a banger on there. I pulled guys like Mikey the Magician from All But Six, the MTM, hit him with the heat, and then Flexitelli, which is the Hey, Yo, Little Mexico, pass the gas. Real famous beat tags that I wanted it on there, but I wanted that. I guess that essentially was me bridging that gap with like what's over on this side that maybe like a lot of juggalo rappers, and I know Ouija would crucify me to hear me call him a juggalo rapper, but I mean, I don't know any other way to describe it, but like you don't hear a lot of juggalo rappers with like those types of beats and like let alone those types of tags either. So I was like, Ouija was the perfect one because he already has kind of that sound already. And then he got Devereaux, Dead Boy Grimm, and then we got some other beat submissions and stuff too. I mean, and then we made Came to Kill. And then Ouija, on a side note, just to drive this home, shout out to him because I mean he gave me a whole Juggalo year, and it started with Juggalo Ohio 3. It started with Dead to Me, and then it moved into Juggalo Ohio 3. I co-headlined night 2 with him and played for like an hour. It was insane in front of all those Juggalos. That was like my first real Juggalo show. He called me on like 2 hour notice to open up for a sold out ICP show in like May out here, also at the Masquerade. And I like rushed down there as fast as I could. I like threw 6 songs together because it was like a little 15-minute set. Threw 6 songs on a freaking thumb drive and just like sped down there. Like got there late because there was like hella traffic and shit. But yeah, no, I did that and it was awesome. Again, something that wouldn't have happened without him. In between that, we decided on doing a tour together, the Another Summer in Hell tour. We had this idea to do a merch drop and push the album and all that shit. And then the gathering was kind of like a byproduct of like all the stuff we were doing. I just submitted an EPK like everybody else, but then, Rob had called me and was like, hey, I don't have many slots left, but I got one at 3:45 on the Iconic stage. Are you in? And I was like, dude, fuck yeah. Just like put me on it. I'll make it work.
Oh, and it did work because there was a lot of people that showed up. Like it was packed for your set, and it was like right before the call, before the random rains weather came in, so it worked out for you pretty well. You rocked it, man. You had the corpse paint, and everybody was all down with it. Like it was badass, dude. And I hope that Psychopathic Records pays attention and ends up putting you on the main stage.
Yeah, dude, it would be a fucking honor to play main stage. I don't know who watches these interviews, but fuck, if you're seeing it, man, put me on, man. Put me in, coach. I'm in. I'm in. I remember before I even went on stage, it was like mostly dead. The only set that it was like kind of bumping for was like Mad Max, and then after that, I was like dead basically up until I went on. But I was like telling my videographer, I'm like, man, I fucking hope people show up, dude. Otherwise, like, I mean, we're gonna send it, but like, this is gonna feel terrible. Yeah, when Stockwell was doing his pregame speech, I was like watching a bunch of juggalos, like hundreds of people come over the hills and through the camps and shit. And I was like, oh, fuck. I'm like, yo, they're pulling up for me. I'm like, that's crazy.
Nah, man,
'Cause
they discover you. They're down with it, man. That's the thing about juggalos. When they become a fan of your music, they become like a dedicated fan for life, man. That's true facts.
you got to maintain that, though. I feel like that's what a lot of people don't understand about the juggalos. And you got to respect the juggalos, too. Like, you can't take them for granted. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
I'm 8 years in this year, and like I've had some exposure, but not like this, and it really honestly wasn't until I met Ouija and like we started getting involved, together that like, he basically brought me in and was like, figured very, very figuratively, but I guess that jersey back there kind of counts as the passing the hatchet over to me and was like, "Hey, welcome to the scene."
It's just fresh, man. And speaking of the album, what I like about the album, it's straight to the point, all killer, no filler bullshit. And then, like you said, having it down to 13 tracks versus the over 20 tracks or whatever, it helps out the album because it's like you listen to the album, it's straight to the point, and then when it's finished, it's like you want more, but you're satisfied at the same time. You don't feel overwhelmed when you're like, yo, what the hell? I'm like 22 songs in, and some of these tracks are filler. They shouldn't be on the album, but this album does not feel like that at all. It was a strength to the album to make it like not go over 35 minutes. And my favorite track personally on the album, the Rock House song. That shit bangs, man. Oh man, you just listen to it and just instantly start bobbing your head, man. Some fucking gangster trap shit. Like, I don't know. And the hook's pretty catchy too. And he's all like, I'll never go back to that drug house. And it's just, yeah.
I don't know if you can tell, but even in the lyrics, man, Ouija's definitely is like making songs for the Juggalos, like making songs for people that he knows are like going through some shit. That song in particular is definitely one of those songs that is 100% like that. Like throughout the album, we go through like kind of very like laughable and meme cartoony sort of tropes and stuff like that. But there are a couple on there kind of more on the deep side, Drug House is one of those. Ouija's least favorite track, actually, but I noticed it's a fan favorite. I talked to a lot of people about it. A lot of people have told me they love the song Holy Day.
Yeah, see, sometimes there's songs that the artist doesn't like, or it's like, I don't really want to perform that song anymore. But the thing is, man, it's the fans that love it at the end of the day is what matters. Like, an artist can put out a track that they think is whack as fuck, but if it has a bunch of fans that are about it, then that's what counts.
Yeah, yeah. He almost didn't want to, like, he was like, dude, I don't even know if I'm like, dude, no, like, I liked it a lot, but I'm like, there's people that have heard it before it came out, and they were like, yeah, this song's sick. When I did finally get a chance to walk around in the early evening, when it was like, when there was still some sunlight out, dude, I couldn't walk more than like 5 or 10 steps without someone stopping me and not only asking me for a picture, but just like saying hello, saying what's up, and like throwing me a whoop whoop or something like that. It was kind of surreal because I was like, I never realized, and I try to keep my ego pretty quiet, and like I'm just like, everybody has an ego, but I try to just like remove all that, like especially around juggalos. I'm in y'all's house, man. Like I'm kind of just happy to be here, and I just I'm happy you guys fuck with my music because it's like I don't necessarily make music for juggalos. I just make music just because I like it. This is also kind of my job now, but I just make it. And if juggalos, I don't give a fuck who likes it. You know what I mean? But the fact that like ever since Ouija brought me into this scene, it's like it's just been literally been nothing but love. So that's surreal, but also very fucking cool.
The experience of that must have been a little overwhelming at the same time, but also feeling good.
I'm pretty antisocial, like as I've gotten older. Trust me, the gathering, like my my social battery was like, or like my social exposure was like maxed out. Like I was like, I'm super cooked right now, but I'm like, you know what? I'm here, and like this is the only chance people are going to have to like take pictures and all that kind of shit. It's the same thing with like being on tour. It's like there's positives and negatives to being on tour, especially for like 40 days, like we were for Another Summer in Hell. But like overall, it's like I get those bursts of energy where I'm like, I am happy to be in the room, and I am always thankful and happy when like, people are coming up to me and like either taking pictures or buying merch or just saying what's up or whatever. Obviously watching the show.
Oh yeah, man. I'm glad that you had a great experience at the gathering. It's always good to hear whenever an artist has a great time and has success at the gathering of the Juggalos.
And look, I'm not gonna lie, dude. There were definitely like I asked Zab, who's my shooter, he's a juggalo. And I asked some of my other homies. I asked straight up when I was FaceTiming Ouija, I asked him, is it true what they say about people throwing shit at you? And he's like, are you afraid of it? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I've never experienced that before. And he's like, well, get ready because it might happen. And he's like, dude, they throw shit at ICP. They throw shit at me. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, is it what? I'm like, what does it mean? And he's like, well, it can mean one of two things. Usually they really fuck with you, and they're just having fun. They're just fucking wilding out, and that's just their way of showing love, which sounds really weird. Or they're testing you. And I was like, damn, they really do that shit. I was like, wow. But I remember during my performance, there was one guy. I saw him at the very first show on the Ouija Mac tour. He was right up front both times, actually. Scott Bessler, who he was just shooting me constantly with a squirt gun. And I'm just like, yeah, that's how it started. And then like people are throwing Fago, like full bottles of Fago on the stage. Shit's like blowing up. People are throwing water balloons, and then some chicks like fucking hosing me with beer and shit. And mind you, I don't drink. I'm sober. But like I'm like, damn, I can taste this shit.
And you were scoring the corpse paint too.
And I did. I'm like, fuck, dude, this course beat my tune. Thankfully it didn't, but I'm like, yeah, fuck it. If it does, whatever. Even through all that, I'm like, you know what, man? Like, this is probably the only crowd, like juggalos in general, like a juggalo crowd is probably the only crowd I'd be like, I understand it's part of their culture. It's just what they do, you know? So if you're performing at a, whether it's a gathering or Juggalo Ohio or Hollow Wikid or something like that, like, you just got to know, like, this is just how it is. I've seen over the years just people just getting popped with crazy shit, like shooting fireworks at Yellow Wolf and shit on main stage. Like, what was it, like a year or two ago? Like, fucking, sometimes shit gets crazy. I feel like the other thing too, man, is I feel like, dude, if you can perform for the Juggalos at the gathering inside their home, if you can handle that, because that's honestly, I'm not gonna lie. If you're on stage 3, maybe not so much. I didn't really watch too many stage 3 artists, but like, so I didn't really see if they were throwing shit. But if you can handle a stage 2 or a main stage, you should be fine. I haven't fully decided on a final title yet. That'll come probably in like the next month or so. There's 5 tracks that are completely finished. There's 3 more that I gotta wrap up, and that's probably when I'll start ironing out the actual title of the album. It's only gonna be 8 songs, but it is an extreme metal album, so you're talking like slam and death metal specifically. So it gets kind of ignorant. I will say, you know, because I am fresh off the Came to Kill album, so any Sinizter fans and juggalos out there that are just getting put onto Sinizter, if you consider yourself a fan of me, just a heads up, I definitely like to switch it up. I'll give you guys some trap rap, and then you know, I'll give you guys some metal, and just hope you like it. But DJ Chunk, you heard that right. He does have a cameo on this album on one of the songs. I sent him like 5 tracks, and I was like, hey, can you scratch on these? He was like, yeah, sure, dude. He scratched on the entire thing, but there was only one section that for me, I felt like really made sense. So I kept it. So that record will come out with his scratches on it. So there's a little bit of Jug influence in there. The shout out to Chunk for that too, because that was definitely no easy task either. To sit there and just do his thing on some metal tracks of all things. Other than that, I mean, like I said, I definitely like to switch it up and keep things interesting. I don't want to just keep regurgitating the same trap album or EP over and over and over again. Yeah, just even for me creatively, it just gets stale because I have this like longing to do more, you know, and like I have what I feel like is a pretty crazy vocal range, so I like to show it off. So I can't really do that on like trap songs.
And we're definitely looking forward to that project that we're currently speaking about. I saw you posted snippets, and they sound pretty cool, man.
Yeah, I did. I appreciate it. And for anyone out there too, if you want to familiarize yourself a little bit before that album comes out or the singles start rolling out, War Life Death, I dropped it like January of this year. Kind of basically like that's like the part 1 of what the album that I'm about to drop. That was like a 6-track EP. That's it's basically extreme metal. It's kind of the same idea, but this leans a lot heavier into like the death metal and the slam elements for sure. All right, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know that I would be listening to music during my final hour, but if I had to pick one album, believe it or not, it'd be something kind of light. There's a pop punk band called the Home Team, and they have I think it's their second album called Slow Bloom. I'd probably listen to that because it's like there's not as much screaming in it, which obviously I'm a big fan of, but like if I'm about to die, I think I want to go out listening to something a little lighter, you know, especially if I only have an hour, which is insane. It's still got its heavy elements though too. So actually if you know the guitar player Jeff Loomis from Nevermore, he actually has a guest solo feature on there.
That's crazy.
So, yeah, especially because for like a pop punk band, that's why I say they're like a little on the heavier side. So that's why I like them. I don't like pop punk at all, for the record.
I gear more towards like classic, like 70s and 80s punk and some 90s. But I mean, pop punk is a guilty pleasure of mine because I do like some 41. So there's kind of that. And Newfound Glory has some catchy songs, but other than that, no, I feel you, man.
I think long term, maybe this is a short term goal, but definitely long term, I want to start hitting the international shows a lot harder. I just got to get a booking agent. So for like international specifically, I played a show in Europe back in 2023 with like a bunch of huge bands, and I was like representing trap metal because like the whole purpose of this festival in particular in the Czech Republic was like to like they had like death metal bands, they had like metalcore, they had hardcore, and they were like, we know trap metal exists. We want to acknowledge it. Like, who better than to have you? So I was like, oh shit, okay. So, and like at the time, I was playing above like bands that I listened to, which was crazy. And these were not small bands either. These were very big bands. But like the experience though was super super sick. That was my first like ever open air festival like that. Really really cool. And to play for people that are not American was also super dope because it was like a whole vibe change. So I definitely want to get back out to Europe, and I know I've always had the European fan base too, with like because they're into the dark trap shit. Yeah, I want to see what I can actually do out there. I think just like writing, like aside from that, just like writing like more music, that like taking time to make like the best quality shit that I can. Because I think long term, one thing I want to do is end up becoming like, I mean, this is just going to be a byproduct of like all my work pretty much, but like I definitely want to be like a gateway artist to introduce like people that listen to me into music that they never thought that they could like. So if I collaborate with like Aesthetic Perfection, you know what I mean? It's like maybe you discovered that you like industrial. Maybe you already like industrial, but you don't know that you could even like death metal or slam or extreme metal, but like you heard this new Sinister album and you're like, "Damn." You're like, I love Sinizter and I love that album. And now you're a fan of Peeling Flesh. Now you're a fan of like, Cephalotropsy or Putrid Pile or like, yeah, something like that, something heavier side. And it's like, dude, like, who is your introduction to that? It's like Sinizter, man. Like, or one album by Sinizter, he's a rapper, but like he does all kinds of shit. And I really like that album, So like I said, I'm not much of a gatekeeper, like especially when it comes to like genres and stuff like that. And I love music so much, and I feel like if I can get people into more underground styles of music like that, like that'd be sick. And then with that said, I do have here's just a spoiler for like 2026. Really, kind of early to be spoiling this, but I recently got past a beat pack of that had some pretty like high profile producers on it these are like a couple of them are like industry level producers. They collaborated on this basically like 5 instrumentals and the pack was originally supposed to be for an artist named Scarlord. I guess he just didn't use them. This pack was like 2022, 2023. Like that was like the year that it was made. And I was like, damn, he didn't use any of these. I'm like, this is insane. Picture like the vibe of it is pretty much like picture like Knocked Loose, but with like some light trap elements and some like modern electronic elements. So like I'd say like Knocked Loose and like New Code Orange with like trap.
And for those who don't know who Knock Loose and Code Orange are, Knock Loose is more on the metallic hardcore side, and Code Orange is, well, they've evolved a lot. They mix industrial and extreme metal at the same time. But they were more hardcore sounding in the early days when they were called Code Orange Kids. But yeah, definitely. Wow, that's crazy, man.
Yeah, I think it's next level. And like I said, I'm surprised he didn't choose those beats. So I'm going through the process as of this interview right now of like getting all those instrumentals cleared with like, their lawyers and, their whole camp or whatever managers and all that stuff. There's like a massive email thread that's like getting all that stuff sorted right now. So, but yeah, thankfully they were like more than happy to have me do it. And, everything's kind of just a handshake deal. And I was like, all right, sick. Hell yeah. I can pull this shit off. I'm definitely stoked for that. That'll probably follow on this project that I'm about to do.
I'm looking forward to that project as well, man. You definitely have a lot of projects working on that we're gonna be looking forward to. Wow. Thank you for doing this interview, Sinizter. Greatly appreciate you. Is there any final shout outs you have to give before ending this Vega Lovers on the interview?
Yeah. Shout out to Chapter 17 and Ouija for bringing me into this community, into the Juggalo world. Without him, I wouldn't have been able to, we both bridged gaps for sure. And so I'll be eternally grateful for him for that. And then the Juggalos, man, all the Juggalos that fuck with me and that listen to my stuff and support me, shout out to you guys and whoop whoop. Hope you guys are ready for some new music.
Whoop whoop. Thank you very much. Peace.